The opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Cable 14, its sponsors, or its shareholders, Cogeco Cable, Shaw Cable, and Source Cable Limited.
And welcome to the December 21st Winter Solstice edition of For the Record. And today on FTR, it's the Opinionators. I am Larry Deanne, and here's what we're going to talk about on today's show. 2011 was the year of the election, both at the federal level and the provincial level. So we're going to look back and see if what people predicted has come about. And then we're going to do the lightning round. And of course, we're going to do all of this with our esteemed panel. And let's meet them now. Representing the Conservative Party is Tara Crugnale, who was a candidate provincially and is a Conservative organizer as well. Welcome, Tara.
Thanks, Larry.
And Ron Corsini represents the Liberal Party. He's a former councillor in the city of Hamilton and a Liberal stalwart. Welcome, Ron.
Merry Christmas, Larry.
And Alex Johnstone, of course, is a trustee in the Hamilton Board of Education, and she's also an NDP organizer, sympathizer, and part of the Brain Trust NDP locally. Welcome to you, Alex.
Happy Hanukkah, Larry.
Thank you, and Merry Christmas, of course, to everybody, and Happy Hanukkah. And listen, we've got lots to talk about today, and let's start with the election at the federal level, and we'll start with you, Tara, because of course, we know that the Conservatives won their coveted majority after having ruled for a number of years in a minority situation. And Mr. Harper is enacting some of the things that were dear to his heart and in his platform. How has he done, and what's your take on how things have evolved since the election?
Well, Larry, it's true. We waited a long time for this majority government. We languished in minority waters for almost 5 years, and they continuously voted in Stephen Harper, but weren't sure if they really trusted him. And finally, with this election in 2011, we got that majority. It was a great success, and we are now listening to the Canadian public. And there's one thing that you can say about Conservatives at both the provincial and federal level. We are going to tell you what we plan to do, and then we're going to enact it. In some other cases, with the Liberals especially, they'll kind of wobble back and forth, and we'll say after they're elected they can't do X, Y, and Z. But with us, you know what you're going to get when you vote for us. So there was no hidden agenda, no surprises. Canadians are getting exactly what they voted for, and I couldn't be happier.
All right, and well, let's go to you, Alex, because your party broke through in a major way. They are now the official opposition. And so that was the highlight. But of course, there was some tragedy as well with the death of the leader of your party. And now with Mr. Mell at the helm and many of the leading candidates vying for the leadership position, the party has faltered in the polls. How do you assess what's happened over the last number of months?
I think that, well, certainly Jack Layton has been, he was a triumph, 6 months ago, and today, of course, it's turned into a great tragedy with his loss. I think that what has happened with the party in terms of where we stand in the polls is to be expected. All of our, our top MPs, they're all out campaigning, trying to become leader right now, and that's really pulled away from their work and certainly their criticism and that they had to offer inside Parliament. I think that Harper does have a bit of a free pass right now. We've seen him get away with the long gun, with the wheat board, and of course more recently with the environment. But I think that once the NDP elects its new leader in March, that Harper will have to be on his toes again. I know that one of the strategies, at least from Mr. Top, if he was to become leader of the NDP, is to get the MPs off the Hill and out into the community where they can organize community members and help them to pressure the government into decisions that Canadians want to see. Okay,
and Ron, now your party went from opposition to third-party status in the House. The leader, of course, Michael Ignatieff, was not elected, and the interim leader is Bob Rae. And if there's a silver lining, especially in the absence of any NDP opposition, as was just stated, or at least concerted NDP opposition, as was just stated, it seems as if Bob Rae's stealing the limelight. How would you assess how your party is doing and how Parliament is doing over the last 6 months?
Well, I think the party right now is rebuilding itself, and it's starting from the ground up. It has to start from the ground up. I think the party made two errors in electing the past two leaders with Dion and then Ignatieff. I wasn't happy with either of those two. They wouldn't have been my choice for leader. And I think the party was in disarray at that time, and now we have an opportunity to rebuild itself. I'm just disappointed in one way that we're taking such a long time to elect a new leader. But I think that, on the other hand, that's a good thing, because we really have to find out where we're going from here, and we want to take back the government. The NDP, I don't think that they would have done as well as they did without Jack Layton as their leader. I think he just oozed all this charisma. He showed another side of what politicians could do, and I think that that's why he did so well in the election. The Conservatives, yes, they do have a free pass, and hopefully that once the two parties, the NDP and the Liberals, elect their leaders, then we'll have a real opposition, and they will have something to argue about, and will resonate with the Canadians also, saying, yeah, they're right. And they shouldn't let the Conservatives get away with what they're getting away with.
Ron, what are we getting away with? And Alex, the same question to you. We promised that we would get rid of the wheat board monopoly.
Actually, no, you didn't.
We said we were going to scrap Kyoto.
You said that you would
we
have
were going to get rid of the long gun.
You would have a vote with the prairie farmers, and that didn't happen.
And you can let me speak.
Look at your own
I think that we're just
platform.
offering what Canadians wanted from their government. And finally, Ron, I totally agree with you. The Liberals have to stop electing people as their leaders that are clearly smarter than us and know they're smarter than us and feel better than us. Stéphane Dion and Michael Ignatieff are not. They were academics and not populists. And that's why Jack Layton did so well. No, they didn't. And Jack's a smart guy too. But he connected with the people, and I am sorry of his passing. It was a tragedy for the NDP, and yes, it was a tragedy for Canada, because he was a good guy. My only fault, I find fault with what he promised Quebec, and obviously that's why we have the NDP as the official opposition now, because of the weight they've been holding in Quebec.
I think, to be fair, the Liberals are in the midst of reviewing their election process in order to choose the next leader, because they don't want to make the same mistakes again. But in response to Ron's earlier comment that Jack Layton was the NDP, Jack had been working towards this for years. What happened, in Quebec wasn't out of the blue. It was we had been investing in Quebec for many, many years and working towards this. The other thing that Jack did was he invested in the party. He made sure that he wasn't just the party, that he was leaving behind a legacy. Although he couldn't have predicted his early and untimely death, he was building up the party on a continuous basis, and that's why we have 11 fantastic candidates running for leader at the moment.
Alex, the NDP never had much of a membership in Quebec, and they still really don't. It was I mean just grassroots membership. It really wasn't there until now after the election.
But as I said, we had been planting the seeds for years and growing it.
But where
the fact that it took off and it caught fire was fantastic.
It's going to be interesting to see if the NDP could hold on to all those seats in Quebec. I remember reading somewhere that Brian Topp, is Brian Topp, Alex?
Yes.
He wanted, he's already talking about, raising taxes. And I think once you mention those words to Canadians, they don't want to hear that at all.
Actually, in a recent survey that was published in the Globe and Mail, that's not actually how Canadians feel. They have no problem with the tax increase. I think that's just your liberal and conservative mantra. Is depending on where the taxes are going.
In their right mind wants to pay more taxes?
Well, if you're taxing, what we need is a fair tax system. Taxing certainly those who make more more income should be, having a more fair tax rate. Taxes, across the country,
so
we've been dropping them for years,
you're going to punish
and
people
now we have this great big
So
gap.
you're going to punish people for making money,
it's
for doing
fair.
well, for going to school, getting an education.
What's fair, Tara?
All right, listen.
What's fair?
Listen.
Okay.
I know that this is a combative program, and it's all about presenting your points of view, but it also is the Christmas spirit, folks. Let's remember that. Let's talk about the provincial scene now, and maybe we can start with you, Ron. I think it was an election where each party could say that they won something. The Liberals won government again after everybody predicted they wouldn't. Certainly the Conservatives improved their standing in the House, as did the NDP. Ron, tell us how things have gone since the election, now that the House has recessed for Christmas.
Well, I think they've gone pretty well. I don't think that the Conservatives or the NDP want to bring down the government, to call and have another election called. I think during the election campaign, though, you had Dalton McGuinty come right out, and say he wasn't the most popular guy around. And, usually a leader wouldn't say those things, who wanted to get reelected again. I think the NDP campaign was slick. I think Andrea did a great job on that campaign. The Conservative campaign was a disaster. And
absolutely.
I thought so anyway, but the majority of people that I talked to thought so. So here we have a situation with a majority government. And hopefully...
Ron, did you trademark that yet?
I haven't trademarked that word yet, but I plan to. Here we have a government that can work for all of Ontario. We are in very difficult times now, and here you have government coming and rethinking what some of the platforms that they have to do, and this is where they have to come from. Alex,
what's your take on it?
Well, I think that, they have a majority, exactly as Ron has coined it. So that means that Dalton, has to continue working with other parties. I think that he's offered the olive branch a little bit. I think that he could work better with the NDP and the Conservative. Certainly, as we'll discuss later, that has been happening in regards to corporate taxes, where you see both the NDP and the Liberals giving a little bit of give on both what they ran on in the election. But I think that going forward, he will have to continue working with the NDP and with the Conservative if he is to. It's not just about being concerned about the government falling, because I don't think that's going to happen in the next 4 years. I think he's pretty safe. But in terms of keeping constituents happy, keeping Ontarians happy, obviously they liked aspects of both the NDP and the Conservative platform, and he needs to respect Ontarians.
All right, and Tara.
I think that any give that Dalton McGuinty appears to be offering to Andrea or to Tim is completely contrived. He knows that neither other opposition party is going to bring down the government. So he is only giving what he himself already just wants to give, one way or the other. He knows that he's got at least 1 full year before anybody actually starts shaking their sabers with an election call. I feel that after this election, the minority government situation, Dalton McGuinty is still as arrogant as ever. He is going to do exactly what he wants. We saw that with the election of the Speaker, and we're seeing it again and again with the way that he does treat both Andrea and Tim behind closed doors. He knows that he's the Premier, and he is going to act like he's got a majority. That being said, yes, the Conservatives did have some... We tripped a little bit, we'll just say, during the election.
You fell down flat on your face.
And we're going to be looking. No, we didn't fall down.
Oh,
we
gained
our seats.
Oh, God,
we gained our seats. We did what we could. If the public wasn't ready to hear our side of the story, they're certainly going to see the consequences of it in the next few years with Dalton McGuinty as their leader. So we're, in February, we're going to be overviewing our policies and moving forward.
Well,
we are very happy with Tim Hudak.
Maybe Hudak should be listening to Ontarians.
We're very happy with Tim Hudak as our leader. He's treated us well, and we all believe in the same policies and cause, and he's going to be the next Premier of Ontario.
Rather than blame Ontarians, because the common denominator here is Hudak. So maybe he needs to do more listening.
All right. Well, would that take that as some advice, Tara?
No.
And pass it along to Mr. Hudak. I'm sure he'd appreciate it. He's probably never heard that before, right? Listen, let's stick to we're into the lightning round now, and let's stick to the provincial scene because as already has been said by Alex, and maybe we'll start with you, Alex, on this. The NDP has been railing against these corporate giveaways, these tax cuts, and Andrea has wanted us to roll back, increase taxes to corporations, roll back to a number of years ago. The Premier has said no until recently. Andrea mellowed a little bit. She said, okay, don't roll back, but keep them as they are. Don't reduce them any further. There seems to be some accord there. Is that convenience or is that a meeting of the minds? Alex?
I think that both politicians, both McGuinty and Horvath, recognize that we have an opportunity to work together here, and that's certainly what the NDP campaigned on. That we're interested in making government work, and certainly when it comes to economic matters, where I think that Dalton has realized the costs of corporate tax cuts. There's not just benefits. There's an actual real price tag, and right now we're in a position where we cannot afford to continue to give out expensive corporate tax cuts. The plan was to shave off another 0.5 percentage point by July, and by not going forward with that, we're going to save ourselves over $800 million.
Aren't we in the lightning round?
Which is, think of all the different programs that we're looking to scrape together, pennies for right now just to save. That money, every single dime, means something. And so I think that this is a unique opportunity, and I hope this is the kind of relationship we'll see going forward.
All right, Tara, we're going to give you equal time. Go.
I don't think I really need it. I think that this is a scary proposition. You're pushing away private sector jobs. It's not like the government can hire everyone and offer them the same fantastic wages and benefit plans that
How are you pushing
many
away jobs?
people already do have. You cannot maintain high corporate taxes and expect companies to invest in Ontario. It makes absolutely no sense. We need a lower tax base for corporate. You know what, Alex? You've been talking forever. Give me a chance. It just makes no sense for them to do this, and we're gonna see ourselves slip further into deficit and recession with these type of implementations. Ron?
No, I don't see that at all. I see that the Liberal government is a forward-thinking government. They could see the handwriting on the wall. They know that we're going through this economic turmoil at the moment, and they're saying, you know what, we're going to have to put off maybe lowering these taxes at this particular moment until we get back on our feet. Look, we have the federal government reducing transfer payments to the provinces that for our hospitals. And where is this money going to be made up? So Dalton McGuinty sees it. I mean, he's a bright person. He knows the score, and he sees what he could have. And there has to be give and take under this majority government. And here you have an opportunity. Well, you know what? Taxes, I think it's 1.5 from 11.5 down to 10. And maybe in 2 years' time, we could re-look at this situation and lower the rates at that time. But right now, we have to think forward, and we are. We could hold off for a little bit.
Tara, your party that hopes to be government.
You can keep calling us government.
All right.
That's
well,
okay,
it would be wrong, however. So let me be clear. Your party also wants to see the deficit reduced. They have a different way of wanting to do that. We'll get that to the next topic. But why don't you comment on, because we've got a little bit of time, and maybe each of you can take a shot at this. Was it Moody's, one of the rating agencies, threatened to downgrade Ontario's credit rating, which would cost us more money, would increase our deficit. And so maybe it is time to relook at promises such as the tax cut promise, as well as others as well. Tara, what do you say to that?
Well, I have to say that Dalton McGuinty's government has been in power for 2 terms now, now this one, so they cannot blame any of our financial difficulties on governments past. They've dug their own grave here, and the grave of all Ontarians. We are being overtaxed, we are being overburdened. Perhaps there are some things that have to be cut. And if the government's not willing to do that because they're afraid they're going to lose votes, oh, well then, you know, we're going to be in the poorhouse once again.
No, I don't see it that way at all. I see it that we're going through an economic downturn. And Canada really has come out of this better than the States. Look at the States. Our biggest trading partner is in the States. Now we're looking at trading with Europe. Europe is in utter chaos. And so the States is way down. People are losing their homes, their jobs. And that reflects us. The States coughs and we catch the cold. So there's got to be some thinking about, hey, you know, we are not an island on our own here. We do business with the world as a whole, and when business is down, then this is where the government has to step in and say, hey, you know, these are things that we have to look at. A wage freeze that the Conservatives are proposing, how much money really is that going to save? So we have to start thinking about the betterment of all Ontarians, and right now, all Ontarians have to tighten their belts. And so is the government going to have to tighten their belts and not hand out and spend money like drunken sailors.
But they've been the ones in power for 8 years.
Yeah, but this is not a fault of their own. This is something that is worldwide. It's not an Ontario problem.
I know, but Dalton McGuinty has increased our
Pardon
deficit tenfold
during
his time in power.
Listen, I'm just the moderator here, but so has Mr. Flaherty federally. And he's saying that it's the cause of the global situation as well. Alex, what's your perspective on this?
I'd have to agree with Ron that you can't look at our economic situation inside a vacuum. You know, the reason why Moody's said that they're looking at decreasing our rating is because our economy is directly tied and so dependent on the United States, and right now their economy is not stable. And you know, so it's that relationship that's actually jeopardizing our ratings. I think though where the Liberals do need to take some responsibility here is that for years our economy has really been based on taking our resources and exporting them. We need to instead of going from such an export economy, start looking at becoming more of a value-added economy and focusing on having the manufacturing and having those jobs occur right here in Ontario.
Well, Alex,
but it's too expensive. It's too expensive to do business in Ontario because of the corporate taxes.
Oh, give me a break. We have one of the lowest.
Cyclical, Alex.
We have one of the lowest ratings across all of the developed countries. We are very competitive. It's ridiculous to think otherwise.
Ontario is not competitive.
Well, all right. Let's this is a variation on that same theme, and let's pick it up with you, Alex, because you have told us in the past how NDP governments have been very responsible in terms of balancing their budgets.
Yes.
We have a huge deficit in Ontario, and maybe the corporate tax recess would help us address that. But the Conservatives, and we'll get to you, Tara, as well, but the Conservatives have said that this time we can't afford to be paying public service wages the way we have been in the past. And some wages, your own party has said, are way out of whack. Andrea has talked about corporate, or at least CEO wages for hospitals and so on. Way out of whack. So the Conservatives have said, let's freeze them. Alex, how can we lower or freeze the corporate taxes and not freeze government wages?
Well, according to the Conservatives, they estimate that we'd be able to save $2 billion annually, which is a significant, chunk of change. I think, though, and I think that Andrea was correct that we do need to look at the people at the top who are making, a lot of cash for, millions of dollars for just one person. However, I think that it's a myth to think that public service workers make way more money than private sector. Recent studies show that we are right on par with what the private sector pays. And is a big freeze actually going to I guess you have to think about, cutting off your nose to spite your face. As soon as you freeze wages, those are people then that aren't able to pay, higher taxes or more taxes. That's, money that's not being spent into the real economy. The reason why it's so much better to just, raise corporate tax rates is because that money is not being invested in the real economy. That's going into, shareholders, money, overseas. It's not being invested in our economy. If you want jobs in Canada and you want money being spent in our economy, then you should actually be investing in public health or public service workers. Just to give an example, you look at countries like Sweden, over 40% of their workforce is public employees, and their country is doing fantastic.
Completely different.
Ron, let's come to you.
You know
now.
what? You have board of directors that set salaries for a lot of the CEOs in the private sector and in the public sector. So you have people that work in hospital that run hospitals, and they're running a multi-million-dollar corporation with a lot of. It's very competitive out there, because if one CEO doesn't get a job here, somebody's looking for that person.
No, but never mind, Ron, never mind the CEOs. Answer this question. It's only
Wage
fair.
freeze.
Mr. McGuinty, the Premier, has indicated that he wants a voluntary wage freeze by public sector workers.
A voluntary wage freeze.
Voluntary.
Voluntary.
Nobody's taken him up on that.
Well,
so why not go the next level if people aren't volunteering and say, zap, you're frozen?
Well, they could do it by not hiring any more new employees either. They can make the government a lot less. If you don't get a voluntary, now who is going to volunteer to have their wages
Well,
frozen?
exactly. So why not freeze them?
So
Because he's afraid of losing votes.
Well, it's
Larry.
optics,
Oh,
right?
I
You
don't
start.
think so.
You know what?
start
Well,
the
Alex, go ahead.
process
Think of
by
it this way.
asking.
We've got a private sector employee versus a public sector employee. They could be making the same base salary, but what the private sector employee does not have, most probably, is the benefit package, the strong union behind them, the wonderful pension package that they get from the government. All these things add to the cost of the public sector, and that's where we have to find our cost savings. Unfortunately, we can't go. Not unfortunately, we can't go cutting people's pensions once they've already worked. We have to start at the bottom, and unfortunately,
then you know what? Then
and
have
we're gonna
hiring
have to
freeze.
there should be a hiring freeze.
Rather
we
than
have
a wage
to try.
freeze.
Can we renegotiate union contracts? Most probably not, and that's why Dalton McGuinty is saying voluntary, because he knows that it's not going to happen. We're
If you just
screwed,
reverse
essentially,
the
in
corporate
this
tax
area.
cuts that we've had for years, you'll find the money there.
All right. Well, but your leader has said that even your leader has said not to do that. She just wants them frozen at this point. But
Well, I
Tara,
think she's meeting
Tara, answer
halfway.
Tara, answer this question because it's only fair. Your party is saying wage freeze.
Yes.
Easier said than done. The last
Absolutely
time your
easier
party
said
was
than
in
done.
power, and the last time a government under the NDP at that time negotiated a social contract to roll back wages, we had major problems provincially. How
Larry,
would you handle
and
that,
that's
Tara?
the case. Unfortunately, our hands are tied. Over the years, we've put ourselves in the situation where we've agreed to union contracts that have demanded X, Y, and Z. They've gotten everything that they've wanted, and
Unions
we're
are
in
good
this
for the
situation
economy.
for good.
Oh,
I
I
don't
don't
see
know.
a way out of it. That's why Dalton McGuinty is suggesting a voluntary pay freeze, because we can't actually do it without the world coming down on our heads.
Well, listen,
Well, that's not gonna
panel where we had a light topic around Christmas cards sent by the leaders. We've just run out of time, though.
Wow.
We only have time to wish all our viewers a very happy and safe holiday, a Merry Christmas and a happy Hanukkah. And we hope that you've enjoyed this year's Opinionators. This panel has done, I think, a great job of highlighting the differences among the parties and the issues in a very admirable way. And so that is the Opinionators for tonight. We are going to come back on January the 4th with the same panel when we continue looking at provincial and federal issues. In the meantime, I bid you good night and remind you to watch David Sweet on Hamilton Talks tomorrow night at 10 o'clock and Thursday tomorrow night at 7 p.m. The Tiffany Falls are being lit in Ancaster. Please go and watch. It'll be great. Thanks for watching. That's it for the Opinionators.
Tara Crinali's hair by Ludi Mamoda Hair and Aesthetic Studio, 169 James Street North in downtown Hamilton.